couple, as we thought about this learning community, we realized that we started in September, not even at the beginning of September. And I wanted to take a minute and have us just reflect on how far we've come in such a short period of time. We started with building a team, our campus community partnership. We started with really what was a wicked problem. And then we narrowed that down to a problem of practice that we can address during phase 2. Built out action plans, really strong action plans and budgets. Worked through a conflict resolution plan, which just was due, I think, last Friday. And we're going to be turning to our final project plan. That is an amazing amount of work in a very short number of months. And it's made even more amazing about the fact that we did this during a COVID surge, which I know pushed all of you in ways that really none of us could have ever anticipated. So I want to make sure that as we in one sense, start to wrap up phase 1, that we all just have a sense of our collective work. Let me go to the next slide. And sometimes it's really helpful too to see what things look like across all of our campus community partnerships, to see sort of that larger forest. And as we looked at all of your projects, looked at all the action plans, and we realized that they really sort of grouped into a number of focus areas: social isolation and connection, awareness and access to services, prevention services, comprehensive services, really then also working to connect our students to resources outside our campus communities. And then also early identification and intervention efforts. These projects are going truly across the continuum of care, not just treatment and recovery, but really to prevention and promotion. And in doing that, it's a model, I think, for our state. It's a great model of how we can capture that whole continuum. Time and funding constraints, that's been one of our challenges. That does mean that, in a lot of cases, we've chosen environmental approaches. We haven't had really the time or the budget to do individual approaches in most cases. And that's fine. But it's neat to see how that broke out across all of our campus community partnerships. And as we think about how far we've come, and although it's really sort of too early to have hard data on our outcomes, we've seen some really important impacts. Things like new partnerships being created that span our boundaries. We've seen linkages between the campus community partnerships that have been involved in this initiative. That's amazing. It's created a space for collaboration that didn't exist. We've seen referral processes that have been refined and solidified. Shared understandings have been refined between our campuses and communities. And we've done a lot of work around needs, gaps, and resources. And I want each of you to think about how far you've come, because sometimes when we're in the trenches doing the work, we can only see that next challenge in front of us. So let's take a minute and just think through how far we've come. And we need to celebrate that success. We need to celebrate it as an initiative and also celebrate it within our campus community partnerships. We've built a model that we can scale across the state of Ohio to better meet the needs of our students' communities. So I want to say thank you for that work, and just thank you for pushing on this, for really working through all these extraordinary challenges. I think the other thing that I want to say too is that we, as a facilitation team, had a chance on last Friday to present to the director of Ohio Moss. And she was really focused on how far we've come and was amazed at the work that you all have done in the space of about 5 months. And what she talked about was that she wants to hear the stories from your partnerships of the impacts that you're making. And down the road, she hopes to see that we've got data to talk about how we've moved the needle. And as she learns about those stories, that's something she can share back with the governor's office, which is where this initiative started. So be thinking about those stories, Make sure you keep them close. Make sure you share them out, especially as we move into phase 2. It really is important. So we're going to turn next, I think, to an affinity group activity. But before we do that, I just wanted to stop for a second and just provide a space to see if anyone has any questions or anything that you'd like to share with the group. All right. Well, in that case, I'm going to turn the screen to Dr. Raffel, and she's going to lead us through a small group activity on affinity groups.
What we'd like to do now is offer a space for all of you to find a home and share a conversation with your colleagues about whatever it is that you choose to do. And so we came up with 2 rounds of affinity groups, and Amanda is going to open up the breakout rooms, and you get to choose what breakout room that you are interested in. So for round 1, we have increasing awareness of or access to mental health services, connecting students to supports outside of campus, promoting social connection, and early identification and intervention efforts. So we'd imagine that we're in a room and we have kind of 4 corners set up, and you can go to one of each 4 corners, which will be your breakout room. And you really have 20 minutes just to talk, and there's no real agenda. It's just, here's the topic, and you can share the knowledge and kind of the accumulated knowledge that you all have and ask questions just to see what you're interested in and how to learn more from your peers. Are there any questions about the task? And so it's just basically time for you to connect on a topic that's important to you. There'll be no report outs, there'll be no slides, there'll be nothing for you to do except for just share with your colleagues. So I will hand it over to Laura, who's going to talk about—
Iris? No, you're supposed to go to your mom's.
Okay. Any questions before we talk for the last time about your deliverables? Okay. So I think you all are quite familiar with this now, but the deliverables will be posted shortly. So I'm trying to get those up tomorrow. And this deliverable will be similar to the others, where you'll assemble the team, complete the deliverable itself, and reflect on it. And of course, we encourage you strongly to use a team approach, especially on this last deliverable, as you're making any final edits to everything you've submitted so far, reflecting on the whole process, and submitting your final plan. So completing your team form is the first deliverable. Completing your final project plan is the second one. So that entails looking at what you've done so far, making any final edits to things that have come up along the way that you've wanted to change, and then putting those together as a PDF document with a cover page. And then you'll reflect on deliverable 5 and really the whole phase 1 process this time. And there are some specific prompts for your co-project leads, as well as the rest of your team. And then you'll submit those to Julie and to me. Those are due the 28th. So your final deliverable. And then just to follow up on the status of deliverable 4 that you recently submitted. Thank you to everyone for getting those in. So we are asking Dr. Luter, who presented last time, to give you some feedback on your conflict resolution plans, but we don't want that to hold up the process. So while he's working on those, go ahead and proceed with deliverable 5, get that submitted to us. You'll get feedback, and if there is anything you want to change based on his feedback, you'll be able to change that. We do have March as that buffer period where you can finalize everything, get your funding, and then start in April. And Julie will talk more about the funding piece when she's up in a bit. So if you have any questions on that, let me know. And if not, I will turn it over to Amanda.
Awesome. So before we hand things off to Julie, who's going to start talking about phase 2, I figured we would do a quick reflection on phase 1, just in the chat box, just anything that was valuable to you from this phase or any suggestions that you have for us about all of these meetings or deliverables or the process or any feedback you want to give at all. It'd be great just to have a quick discussion in the chat box. Awesome. Yeah, feeling empowered and excited. That's great, Alexis. Anyone else? You guys will also all get a chance to reflect on these type of things in the reflection that we have as a part of this next deliverable. It's a reflection of kind of the deliverable that will be due, but also the entire process. So if no one has anything else they want to say, oh, here we go. Connections fostered. That's great, Jillian. We can hand things off to Julie now.
Thanks, Amanda. Appreciate it. Get into that next slide, please. So as we transition into phase 2, and I'm not sure why that big black arrow is there. Let's disregard that. But let's look at a little bit about where we've come so far and kind of where we're going. Again, that phase 1, we started in September, as Dr. Corser talked about, and we're in the process of completing our final deliverable. So you guys received $10,000 to be in that planning phase of this project. And, you know, another piece of that planning phase is also promotion of your partnership. So if there are opportunities where you can continue to connect, whether that is with other groups on campus or at campus events, to continue to promote your partnership and make that visible, that I would encourage you to continue to be able to do that. Once you receive that feedback and there's the approval of the implementation plans, we really start to then transition into phase 2. And that's the implementing piece, the exciting piece of it. And, you know, although we have March as the beginning date here, really we're taking March as that time period to take a deep breath. And if we need to do a little more work on our final project plans, we can do that then. And then that phase, you will be receiving that $40,000 to start implementing. Next slide. So as I mentioned, you know, March, we're really going to take that as a time to regroup. We realize that, you know, we've been pulled in many directions. And for that reason, we appreciate that you guys are continuing to show up and continuing to be there. Submitting those work slippage forms are just one way that we're reminded of the ways that you guys are being called upon and wearing different hats. So we appreciate that continued communication and hope in March that we can help everyone get to the place where they're truly ready to begin phase 2. So phase 2, when we look at transitioning into that phase, and we look at those required activities, you know, first we'll transition from this format of learning communities into something that's somewhat similar, but we'll again focus on implementation. So we'll continue to have the same schedule of meeting the third Thursday of each month, and that will occur from April until August. You guys will receive communication on how to sign up for those monthly coaching sessions. And during those monthly coaching sessions, the format that we anticipate those having is our first 30 minutes will be spent really dedicated to learning best practices or becoming aware more of other strategies that are out there that can help you with sustaining your partnerships and implementing your plans. And then that last full hour will really be dedicated to a working meeting. So working one-on-one with your implementation coach. Again, those implementation coaches are from the Ohio Coaches and Mentoring Network. And you'll have your dedicated coach not only during that monthly coaching session, but you'll also have the opportunity to use that weekly virtual drop-in or the one-on-one technical assistance. Even though those are not required of you, they are available to support you in this. And then continuing with that, with the required activities will be the monthly webinars. So those will also continue on the same schedule. And in September, hopefully we'll have the opportunity to all come together to celebrate the work that we've done on September 15th. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's talk money. When we're looking at our budgets and our disbursements, if you have yet to receive your second disbursement, you will be receiving that by February 20th. And that will culminate, or that will finish rather, the end of phase one. So that will be $5,000 at the beginning, another $5,000 disbursement in February, and then moving on to phase two. So we received a little bit of feedback on release of funding for phase two. And although we originally had it scheduled one towards the end of April and another towards the end of July, we've adjusted that schedule. We will be sending you more information on that, but we are anticipate looking at more of a March and May release instead of what is showing on the slide as an April and July release. So we appreciate that feedback from this group in making sure that we can support your work as it's needed. Again, throughout phase two, that's great. Again, throughout phase two, though, I just want to remind you, we're always available here. Should you have any other questions, please reach out to us. So before we transition on to discuss how we seek support, can I answer any questions? No questions? Okay, well, if there's questions, guys, please send them on to me. Just going over those resources, remember, all the information that we have available for you is not only available on the Google Drive, it's also available on the Rise and Thrive Initiative website. So check that out. We also have other resources on there. So take a look if you have time, which I'm sure all of you just have extra time sitting around. Next slide. And again, we'll continue with those drop-in calls if you need technical assistance. Outside of those drop-in calls times, please just send us an email. We'll make sure that we get to that. The work slippage form, as a reminder, that is on the Google Drive. If you have difficulty finding that, please just let me know. That work slippage form is certainly a great way for us to communicate where you guys are at. So please do not hesitate should you need to submit one. And remember, as you guys probably have found out today, the biggest resource that you really have is each other. Communicating with each other about what's going on in your own partnerships and how you think about moving forward is really the greatest asset. Our next webinar will be Wednesday, March 9th, and that will be same time, 1:30 to 3:30. We will be talking about facilitation as a tool for building campus community relations. Make sure that you register. That'll be either, as you can see right here in this link, or when we send our reminder emails, we always include those links to register. And to find those archived webinars, we'll make sure that we include that in our email as well. But if you aren't able to attend a webinar, please send us a message beforehand so that we know that you will not be there. But please keep in mind that they are required attendance. Just a reminder about continuing education. If you would like us to consider other venues as we move into phase 2 of this project for CEs, please reach out to me. I'm happy to have a discussion about that. Next slide. Just a reminder about who to contact, and when all else fails, please feel free to send that email to me. But if we're talking about anything as it relates to your grant, whether it's payment, terms, conditions, requirements, please send those to me. As for your grant deliverables, although those are sent to both Laura and me, it is truly Dr. Corser and Dr. Ballas that are looking at those and assisting you with navigating questions with those. But again, always here and happy to help. Okay, thanks everyone for showing up today, for being present today, for taking the time to be here. We appreciate the continued communication that you guys provide us on what's going on with your projects. Don't hesitate to reach out to us or drop in for those technical assistance or virtual drop-ins. We're happy to help in any way we can. That's all for now. We're ending up a little bit early today. Here's the link for the evaluation for today's session. We really appreciate any feedback you can provide. Thanks all.
Thank you.